All right, we're going to be looking at the speech to the Second Virginia Convention by Patrick Henry. I'm going to be using blue for my first read through, purple for my second, and a yellow highlighter. So this is the speech that we listened to last week before our live discussion on whether or not we felt that violence was necessary in rebellion. So we are going to be studying the actual text now and taking notes over it, and then you will have a comparative essay that we'll look at after the notes today. And tomorrow will be a writing day dedicated to writing that short essay. Okay, so in the italics here is some background information. On Henry. So follow along as I read this first paragraph. Patrick Henry, born 1736, died 1799, was an orator, attorney, twice governor of Virginia, and one of the founding fathers of the United States. Given on the eve of America's Revolutionary War, Patrick Henry's speech to the Second Virginia Convention articulated his radical views with carefully constructed language and emotional appeals. Hoping to convince Virginia's House of Burgesses to pass a resolution of independence against Britain and to provide military support for the cause, Henry appealed to the patriotism of those in attendance, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and many more. Today, Henry is best remembered for his famous call to arms, "Give me liberty or give me death." Okay, so we start the speech then here. Mr. President, no man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism. So who is Mr. President? Technically, we don't have a president here yet because we're getting ready to start the Revolutionary War, but we can assume that he's addressing their general, who was also Washington. And what is patriotism? Yep, love and pride for your country. So no one thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as abilities of the very worthy gentlemen who have just addressed the House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope I will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen if, entertaining as I do opinions of character very opposite of theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. So this long sentence right here is just to say, not everyone will agree. With what I have to say. And he's going to speak freely and without reserve. So he's also, though, even in light of that, he's not going to hold back. Okay. There is no time for ceremony. The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery, and in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be the freedom of the debate. It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty as treason toward my country and of an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly things. Okay, so let's break that down just a little bit. Okay, so for my own part, I consider it no less a question of freedom or slavery, and in the proportion of magnitude of the subject. So, proportion of magnitude, that's referring to the great importance of what he is saying. He's wanting to get to the truth of the matter. It's very important to him. And should I keep back any of my opinions at this time because he's fearing that he might offend someone, then he would be as guilty as treason. So he feels that it is treasonous, which would be punishable by death. To not speak his truth. And it would also be disloyal to God. Okay, so that's going to take us then on the back to page 2. Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be one of the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not, the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and provide for it. So this last part of the sentence right here kind of summarizes his whole point in that paragraph. Henry wants to know the truth, the whole truth, even if it's terrible. And the truth is this struggle for liberty. And he also kind of here, not only is he speaking for himself, but he's calling out other people with eyes that do not see and ears that do not hear. He's calling them out for not seeing the truth of how bad their situation is. Okay, and then the next paragraph, I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no way of judging the future by the past, and judging by the past, I wish to know that there has been in the conduct of the British ministry for less than 10 years to justify those hopes with which gentlemen have been pleased to solace themselves and the House. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. So here, betrayed with a kiss, insidious smile. He's alerting the other men to not trust the British. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports with these warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our land. Are fleets of armies and necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? So right here, this point, are fleets and armies necessary to work of love and reconciliation? So what he's saying here is that they want war. And not love and reconciliation, or they wouldn't have brought their fleets of ships with soldiers on them. Have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called in to win back our love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, sir, what means this marital array, if its purpose not be to force us to submission? Can gentlemen assign any other possible motive for it? So, who is forcing them into submission? The British Army. Okay, we're going to move on then to page 3. Has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter of the world to call for all this accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir, she has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British ministry have been so long forging. And what have we to oppose them? Shall we try argument? Sir, we have been trying that for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer upon the subject? Nothing. We have held the subject up in every light of which it is capable, but it has been all in vain. Shall we resort to the entreaty and humble supplication? What shall we find which we have not been already exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, deceive ourselves. Sir, we have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on. We have petitioned, we have remonstrated, we have supplicated, we have prostrated ourselves before the throne and have implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of the ministry of Parliament. Our petitions have been slighted, our remonstrances have been produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications have been disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. In vain, after these things, may we indulge the fond hope of peace and reconciliation. So what he's saying right here, from all the way to peace and reconciliation, is essentially we have tried to reason and argue our point of view for 10 years without any success. So he's almost communicating here that they have no other option than to fight.
with the line.
To All right, picking up right here, there is no longer any room for hope. So we have lost hope in peaceful protest. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve and violate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean to not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, and which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. So there is his call to action. We must fight. I repeat, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. And then on the back, page 4, tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when the British Guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemies shall have bound us hand and foot? So right here in this section, he's essentially asking, if not now, then when? We must act now. Okay, picking up at sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed in our power. 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty and in such a country as which we possess are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. So the friends to fight our battles for us are other countries or allies. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. So we have no choice. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. The clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. So we shouldn't drag it out, is what he is saying here. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. So Henry would rather die than continue to be what he calls enslaved, which we know isn't literally true, by the British government. Okay, so now we're going to chunk this. So we're going to start chunk 1 here after the introduction or background information. And we'll stop chunk 1 at the paragraph break here. So this first part on page 2 is still chunk 1, and chunk 2 will start with I have but one lamp. And we go on to page 3. And we'll have this as chunk 3 starting at the top of the page. So page 3 will be chunk 3. And then we'll break for page 4 will be chunk 4. Okay, so again, that's chunk 1 starting on page 1, part of chunk 1 on page 2. Chunk 2 starting I have but one lamp. And finishing at the bottom of the page, chunk 3 is page 3, chunk 4 is page 4. So you've just got 4 chunks to summarize there. You'll do your summary sentences on your own, and then we will go over the writing prompt together.